Hello makers! Welcome back to another episode of 3D Maker Noob. I'm Joe, and today it has to happen again. Yes, yet another Josef Prusa i3 Mark II review. Stick around. Welcome back makers! So it's been almost a month now of me testing out, printing things, a lot of things as you can see, with the Prusa i3 Mark II. I did the live build on this channel, which took in total about 6 hours. It was a lot of fun, so I highly recommend you watch it. And I've been printing ever since. I've had this thing running pretty much non-stop actually since then. I wanted to make sure that I could test out as many filaments as I could on this thing in as many scales as possible. I've used different nozzles. I've jammed a few nozzles on this thing. But all in all, it's been a good journey, and I thought it's time for me to lend you my thoughts of what I think about this printer. Now I know there has been probably too many reviews on this printer, but as I see it, you can never have enough information on something. So I've decided to do my own review video on this, in the hopes that maybe I'll bring up something that no one else has brought up. All in all, the printer was good buy, was a decent buy. I'm happy I got it. But there's been journeys. The journey has been a bit, up and down along the way. Some issues that other people have already mentioned, some which I haven't seen on any other forum or any other video. So I thought I'd bring them up as well. And yeah, hopefully it helps someone else with their journey on this printer. Now the build took me about 6 hours, 6.5 hours on the live stream. Granted, it could have taken me less. However, when you're doing a live build on YouTube, you tend to divert your concentration because you have viewers chatting to you, asking you questions. So it could have taken me less, possibly around 5 hours to build this, because I was making silly mistakes of not taking care and attention of the diagrams I had and the orientation of certain things, or possibly missing a very small step, so I had to retrace, take off a few things again and put them back on together the right way. But other than that, the manual is very clear, it's very good. Granted, there were a few instances where it was slightly unclear, so you had to take a really good look at the photos, because it might not be as clear as possible on the orientation of certain things. But yeah, after about 6 hours, 6.5 hours, we put on the first test print. The calibration was very easy. It's probably the easiest printer I've used so far out of the three I have. Granted, I don't have a lot of experience, but I doubt anything is going to be as easy as this going forward. Hopefully it will be. But it's just a few buttons, calibrating the bed, calibrating the nozzle, finding the right height for the pinder probe to the bed wasn't such a big issue for me. On one of the videos of Josef Prusa, it actually shows you a line of where the top of the pinder probe should align to. So I kind of did it there. Ultimately, it worked. It worked very well. So yeah, that wasn't an issue either. Every time I did the bed calibration though, it kept telling me that it's not reaching the front left sensor. Here, the sensor was just not reaching the front left. It was adjusting the skew of the table automatically. It still printed fine, so I was happy with that. However, after the live stream, my OCD kicked in, and I just wasn't happy with that. So I probably spent another 3 hours half disassembling the unit and reassembling it to make sure it was done the proper way. I did that until when I did the bed calibration, it showed me that it was perpendicular. Congratulations, I just wanted that. So I started printing and I was happy. One thing I noticed though is that on high power mode, it was extremely noisy, and I mean very, very noisy. I've seen video reviews of this thing and they do mention it was noisy, but I did not imagine it would be that noisy. And I figured it's from the bearings inside the whatever you call them, that sort of move on the axes. It just feels like a very, very tiny metal vibration noise, but just amplified quite loudly. So I try to use it in silent mode as much as possible. To be honest, I probably left it on silent mode for at least 3 weeks until I discovered something which I will get to. So I did the partial rebuild, and what I've noticed a few things. First of all, the reason why it was never reaching the front left sensor was because there is a bracket which holds the power supply onto the rods, onto the screw, linear screws for the bed at the bottom. Now, this is the bracket. I don't know if you can see it from there, but it has 2 holes here which enter, go to the power supply, and this goes into the rod. Now, this cannot be adjusted in any way. Once you put it in, you screw it on tight with a nut over here, and it goes straight onto another piece, and there's no wobble. There's no leeway to adjust this. So what was happening is that the bed was restricted to a certain length back forward because of this. So the probe was actually never reaching the front left sensor. So what was happening there is that whenever you attach this, you are limited to a certain amount of space where the bed can move. And what was happening is that the bed should have moved backwards a bit more in order for the probe to reach the bed leveling point. However, it was not doing that. So what I did was I went on Thingiverse and I printed one of these, which is attached now. And rather than just 2 holes went through the screws, it actually has a slot. So you have probably around ½ centimeter of play where you can move this around. So I took it apart once again. I stuck this on and I kept adjusting it until whenever I moved the back of the bed all the way back, I could see that the probe either gets way on top of the sensor or at least a bit more forward to it, so it has perfect coverage. Well, I had a small issue doing that because then obviously the bed sensor, the limit switch at the bottom was kind of getting missed and it was getting stuck, and it took me a while to sort of figure that out. But I managed. Once reassembled, I noticed another thing. Now the gantry here has 2 slots where the screws go in to sort of tighten the gantry to the bed. It's fairly tight, so you just basically slot in the bolts that go in, and you screw them tightly. However, what I've noticed is that the gantry stays possibly about, I'd say 4 or 5 millimeters higher than the rest of the bed. So it was wobbling quite a bit. So I took it off again and I kind of adjusted it so that everything is touching touching the surface of the table. Every single piece of metal or anything that is at the same level was touching the bed surface, so it becomes as solid as possible. Tightened everything again, adjusted the wires, did the calibration, and it worked flawlessly since then. So yeah, those were the issues. Another thing I want to bring up is this. I've printed this during just before the live build to sort of help me align. This, honestly speaking, did not make any difference to me. I actually stopped using it halfway. The reason being is that now it's either because I printed it that way, but this has quite a bit of give. It bends quite a bit, so even if you tighten the screws quite a lot, this starts bending, so it's not going to make that much of a difference. Now, once I did all that, I tried to sort of counteract the noise that it was doing in high power mode, so I printed these. I printed 4 of them, and I put them on. And on the first print that I did, when I put these on, yes, it went quieter, much quieter. But man, this thing was wobbling, and I mean, it felt so unstable, I instantly took them off. So those I'm not using anymore either. One thing I want to point out though, that once I readjusted everything, once I readjusted the axis, once I made sure that everything is perpendicular, the noise actually did reduce quite a bit on high power mode. It was still a bit too loud for me, so I tend to use it on silent mode as much as possible. So those were the issues I had while building it. Now, putting that aside, I've been printing ever since. I've printed a lot of things, as you can see. Most of these things came out absolutely insane. The amount of detail this printer has on its prints is absolutely insane. God, I don't know even where to start. This was the first test print I did, and it was in rigid.ink PLA. It's Buddy, Josef Prusa's dog. It came out very nice. I'm not sure if this was 0.2 millimeters or 0.1. I think it was 0.2. This was done before I actually readjusted the bed and everything. So it has a few flaws. The height of the nozzle wasn't sort of set yet. I was still a bit green on that, so it kind of warped at the bottom because there was not enough adhesion. But I was still happy with that. As soon as I printed that, I went to print this and this. Oh my god, this is beautiful. Unfortunately, my daughter got a hold of it, broke one of its wings off, but I was able to fix that. But the level of detail on this thing, I've printed this in 0.15 millimeter in rigid.ink PETG. The color is absolutely phenomenal. The detail on this thing is insane. It's smooth. I love this thing. I absolutely love this thing. I've printed a few more things. I've printed a very tiny Christmas tree in Protopasta glitter PLA, which is absolutely awesome. I printed 2 of them. Actually, no, this is not glitter. This is glass. This is filamented glass. I was testing this out. I still haven't dialed the settings in for this. It still came out quite nice though. I've printed this one, which turned out very nice. It had a bit of overhang, but other than that, the detail on this thing, you can actually see the letters, Hyde Park, and I'm going to say ISIS here, just to be safe for this one. I've printed a frog, obviously, the actual frog, not the big frog, the actual frog. And this came out quite nice as well. Granted, once again, a few flaws. I hadn't set it up properly just yet. However, once I did set it up, I printed these 2 gorgeous things. Let me get these out of the way. I've printed this Christmas tree, rigid.ink PLA pink, and this is possibly the most flawless print I have ever printed so far. It is so fine, and this is in 0.2 millimeter. It's not 0.1. It's in 0.2 millimeter, and it's so perfect. You can actually see the polygons in the detail. It's just beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. I'm really, really happy with this. Actually, my daughter is really happy with this. I'm not that fond of it, but this, however, this I absolutely love. This is printed in Filamentum Iceland Blue. Crystal clear Iceland Blue. And I love this color. I absolutely love this color. I've printed many things with this color. This is in vase mode. 0.2mm height, single layer, single perimeter, and it came out absolutely amazing. Once I did that, I wanted to test out a few things with dual color. So after printing this thing with the same material, I thought to myself, okay, we can do this in 2 layers. We can do the PLA from Filamentum, and also include some PLA from rigid.ink, which I have done right here. Now this didn't come out perfectly, and there's a very particular reason, because just before this, I printed this. This was in, I think it was bamboo fill. It was the first time printing with any kind of wood. So I had no idea what I should change on the settings. I didn't do my research. It just came in. I was so excited. I wanted to try it. It printed. It came horrible, and I clogged the nozzle. So I was without a nozzle for a bit, just a little bit, because I had already ordered a 0.35mm nozzle from E3D online, and that was here. So I decided to use that instead of 0.4mm until I get some more 0.4mm. So that was a fail. But then I tried it again, and I printed this, and this is absolutely awesome. This came really, really nice in dual color, and I wanted to experiment a bit more. So I printed this baby here. This prints in one piece, and as you can see, you can just turn it around in its place. You just need a bit of, just a little bit of resistance and force just to snap it out. But yes, this came out absolutely beautiful. It's dual color, so it just printed half of it in one color, half of it on the other. And even when I posted these on Twitter, people seem to love this thing quite a lot, and I don't blame them. It actually came really nice. Even the detail on this thing, it printed out amazing, absolutely amazing. So I was very happy with that. I've also did a few more experiments with dual filaments, dual materials, which kind of was a success, but I can get to that on another episode. This is about this one. I also printed this because it seemed so cool. And after printed, I was absolutely amazed at the detail of this thing and how awesome it came out. I think I enlarged it. This was on Thingiverse as well. I think I enlarged it by about 200% because I needed a pen holder for my desk, and this came absolutely awesome. And I also printed this. This is my logo at 3D Maker Noob, where you can find me on Twitter. I printed this in dual color mode. This was supposed to be a box, but then I sort of shaved a bit off so it can be perpendicular, so I can do the dual color, and it turned out absolutely amazing. I had also tried dual color with PLA and PVA, the water soluble material. That worked out very great. So once the multicolor add-on comes out, that should work for supports. Yeah, so I'm very impressed with the detail. Another thing that I don't want to forget to mention is that I have a 0.15mm nozzle from E3D, which I had ordered, and it came in. And I started experimenting. So first, I printed this Kirby, and it came absolutely awesome. I think this was, if I'm not wrong, it's about 10 or 15% of the original size of the Kirby's I've printed. And it is absolutely gorgeous. It's so sweet, and the detail is impressive. I mean, you can see the mouth, the cheeks, the eyes. It's all there. The detail is all there. So I thought to myself, let me just strain this printer a bit more because I haven't enough yet. So I've decided to print this very, very, very small Adelinda the Dragon, and I was impressed. Granted, this thing isn't perfect. The reason why it's so small is because I actually didn't mean for it to be so small, but I overshot the scale when I resized it, and it's still printed. I have no idea how, but it's still printed, and it printed to such a good level that the actual hole inside its mouth is still there. The whole tube is still there. This was printed without infill, and I can see it very clearly. Actually, to make sure that I wasn't seeing things, I actually got an acupuncture needle, and you can actually fit it through. So the precision on this thing is insane. I'm actually very happy with it, and while the prints on this thing are absolutely spectacular, at least in my opinion, I have to bring up a few issues I've had with this printer. As I said, there was the build issues, the construction issues, as in certain things could be done better, and it kind of not irritates me, but it kind of annoys me that so many people are mentioning the same thing over and over again, especially with this bracket, that it should just be fixed. This is not a big deal, you know. You just change the SDL file for this, cut a slot in it, and just print that instead of the other one, just to give people more room to fix things. Just a really silly thing to be hassling over. Another thing I noticed is, and I'm not sure if it was me or the PI sheet, but with certain filaments, getting things to stick on this thing is quite a task, actually. Particularly those who need low temperatures. So, for example, I've printed this maker coin, and with most of the PLA I was using to print on this printer, I was getting warping, and I've never seen anyone complain with PLA warping, and I couldn't figure out why. I thought maybe I'm using the wrong stuff to clean the PI sheet, maybe it's not heated enough, maybe the thermistor isn't working, but yeah, it starts warping at the edges. And even I was printing this PLA, the Iceland Crystal Clear, you could see it. You can literally see the color changing when it started coming off the print bed, and it was like 60 or 65 degrees that I put the heat bed on, so it wasn't insanely hot. So I spent a lot of time testing this out and increasing the temperature to see if it sticks more, putting glue. It just wouldn't work. Things were just coming off. Until I realized that you actually have to lower the bed temperature quite a bit. As in, if I'm using PLA and I go anywhere over 55, let's say, things just won't stick to this thing. They'll just start peeling off instantly, possibly after 2 or 3 layers. And to prove that, I have all these. These were supposed to be maker coins, but they kept coming off, and you can actually see most of these were on 2 batches, and you can see a cloudy bottom here where it started peeling off, and the ones that kept on were here. I also had a bit of another issue with the heat bed, and that was if I needed to print anything that required me to have high temperatures on the heat bed. So for example, 85, 90 degrees, 95, whatever, anything over 80 degrees. About 10 minutes into the print, I would notice an instant drop of about 10 to 20 degrees on the heat bed. And I mean, literally, it would just, you could see it going down. It wouldn't affect the nozzle, but it would affect the heat bed. And I couldn't for the life of me understand why this is happening. I spoke to Prusa Research, I spoke to their customer support. They couldn't figure it out. They told me to check the wires, that everything's connected fine, and I was sure everything's connected fine because I checked and double rechecked. And I just couldn't understand, no matter what I put, hairspray, glue, whatever. I've tried absolutely everything to keep things sticking. Because what was happening is, as soon as that temperature drops happens, things just come off the bed. And I've had many failed prints because of that. Until recently, it kind of occurred to me that maybe if I put it in high power mode, it would work. And it did. When you leave it in, when you're about to print something which requires high temperatures, make sure you put it in high power mode, because it feels like what happens when it's not in high power mode and you need all those high temperatures. It uses all of its energy just to push the heat bed and the nozzle to those temperatures, but then it just exhausts itself. And it starts going down, and it goes down to about 10 or 20 degrees under the limits that you want it to be at, and it just won't go back up. It just will not go back up. So whenever you need something that requires quite a lot of power, make sure you have it in high power mode. And if that's the case, you're probably going to want it to have it in a different room than the one you're in, because you get a headache. So my final thoughts on this printer. Yes, it prints amazingly. I absolutely love this printer with all its faults. Let's not call them faults, because some of these things are possibly my fault because I couldn't figure it out, such as the heat bed issue, the adhesion, the warping. I'll attribute my my noobiness to why I didn't build it right in the first place. But at the end of the day, if you want to streamline a 3D printer to every household, these things matter. Because I had the patience to discover these things. I had the tenacity to do and redo things and try to find out things by myself. Not everyone is like that. And to someone who's starting out and wants this printer, it might get him upset, and he might give up on this stuff. And it would be a shame, because it's an absolutely amazing piece of machine, and for the price, it is absolutely great. I love it. I absolutely love it to bits. I now use it for maker coins quite a lot, actually. I can print 12 to 16 maker coins on this thing, and none of them will come off because I've dialed in the settings. I found out what the issue is, with the heat bed and the power. But the problem was that I've explained exactly what my problem is to their support, and they couldn't understand me. Now, it could be language barrier, and I'll give them the benefit of the doubt on that. But if it wasn't for the fact that it sort of came to my mind, I don't know if it would have happened. And I tried to ask them about buying, literally not asking them to replace it, buying an additional heat bed, just for me to have a spare one and replace it. Maybe that's the issue. And unfortunately, they don't have any. They only have for replacement. So if something goes wrong with your heat bed, you're pretty much stuck with it. However, the price of this thing, the quality of the prints that it produces, and most importantly, the reliability. This is possibly the only printer I have which I can trust to complete a print when I'm not around. I let this thing run day and night, and I haven't had issues with it. Since I've dialed in all the settings, since I've discovered all the issues that I've been having, this thing has proven to be quite a workhorse. So I'm quite happy with that. It kind of bugs me that you need to print certain parts to fix certain things with this printer, like the spool holder, the guide, you know, these are little plastic things which cost very little, which could just be added onto it. But yeah, I guess at the end of the day, it makes it more adequate that you print parts for this printer in order to improve it. And that's okay with me, and it's probably okay with anyone who buys a 3D printer. But yes, this printer is absolutely awesome. I know that a lot of people have said this, and I know there were some people that weren't happy with this printer, but all in all, this is a great printer. It prints amazingly. It has a lot of good things going for it and very little things going against it, especially for the price point it's at and the quality of the prints it produces. So I would definitely recommend this printer. But once again, I have to stress that no printer is perfect. That's something I've come to learn even before I received my first printer. No printer is perfect. There will always be something. And even if a printer is near perfect, there is always a chance that one of these perfect printers might not be perfectly assembled in the factory. Something might be wrong with it. So there's always going to be something. But the good thing is that it's important that you have tenacity to make sure that you look into it, you do your research, you don't give up, and eventually you'll be printing awesome things. Having said all that, I think I've rambled on for quite some time now. I've also, as you can see, I wore my Tigger hoodie today, just to go along with the printer. This will be the last video before Christmas, so I want to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas. I wish you all the love in the world. I thank you guys for the support on this channel. Please like, subscribe, and share. Follow me on Twitter. And I'll see you in the next one, guys. Merry Christmas and happy making. Bye-bye.